Hey everyone, Chloe here, and welcome back to this feminine platform and welcome back to this channel. And if you are new here, ladies and lurkers and ear hustlers, welcome. So I wanted to unpack a long overdue case study that went viral over on TikTok. And this clip was sent to me by so many of you who wanted to know my thoughts on this very common marriage meltdown scenario and to show you an outright example of what it ends up looking and feeling like when you are the masculina workhorse in your marriage and why it is very important, especially for my listeners who are in their early 20s, to understand the very damaging effects of role reversal and the importance of vetting for character, a man's level of masculinity, and his provision, which is often unpacked and discussed on this channel. So, in many, many ways, this is both a case study and a cautionary tale about the often irreversible effects of a spirit of confusion, passive aggressive chameleon boyfriend turned god awful husband, who by default is not a good leader and who sadly expected his wife to remain in her masculine by being the family wallet. But the good news is that although this is a very common marriage trap, that it also can be avoided when we practice hypergamy and when we make character vetting and a man's ability to lead and cover a priority regardless of race or class stature. And just a friendly reminder for those of you who are tuning in that low effort, bare minimum situationships, marriages, relationships can happen with any race of man, which is a message for those of you who love to believe the stigma that only black men expect 50-50 and that only other races of men are automatic providers when nothing could be further from the truth. But for exposure purposes, let's take a look at this very laughable clip that went viral this week.
Normally and typically in an Arab household, the man usually is the provider financially, and that's just how it is.
That is just something I wasn't prepared for.
Most Arab women expect that.
Just like most American people expect the woman to contribute half, or not half, just contribute.
But you're not dealing with an American woman.
No, but she'd have to deal with some of my things though too.
This was definitely not what I wanted to hear. I thought Moroccan women prioritize family over material things, and I was not anticipating that it would mean I have to be the sole provider for a household. I didn't sign up for this.
Now, here you have a very goofy American passport bro bringing his 50-50 assumptions about provision and getting course corrected by an Arabic woman. Because yes, in many Arab cultures and by extension Islam, the husband is expected to be the clear leader and the provider of the family, while the wife in turn keeps herself modest and never once embarrasses the family name or overpowers her husband while trying to outshine him as the woman king boss. And it is also equally important to note that the man in question is an American white male touting 50-50 as an American expectation and standard. So once again, and you can argue with your gas station wig, this very flawed theory that all white men and all othered men are taught to be 100% providers should be chucked out of the nearest cherry-picking selective hearing window, as there are plenty of cheapskate or bottom shelf black and white men who expect a whole lot while offering very little hypergamous incentive for a traditional minded wife. Also, ladies, please keep in mind that although the topic of 50-50 has now been bludgeoned to death, black folk are bringing up this same soup reheated topic every 3 to 5 business days, and this topic is becoming very boring and very unremarkable. But a lot of people do not even know that there are entire Scandinavian nations where women are expected to contribute half and who split bills down the middle even when their husbands are out earning them, which is very similar to Gabrielle Union's lopsided marriage with Dwayne Wade. And from my point of view, I am not about to argue any woman down about her personal choices. So if Gabby likes it, well then I love it. But for the love of Christ, please stop investing in this victim narrative that only black women are expected to build and pay half, because it simply isn't true. But now on to the meat and potatoes of this video. I wanted to unpack this very painful but very enlightening and very revealing couples therapy episode that was trending, and we discussed this in my group, The New Feminine, on the very frustrating aspects of role reversal, which is even more aggressively offensive than 50-50, and what it actually looks like when a man does not have that traditional mindset And this is very important to talk about because a lot of Black women are engineered to be surrogates for masculinity, and they are engineered to be woman kings. So, of course, that mindset and that energy will bring a lot of relationship blind spots when it comes to understanding power dynamics, especially after the honeymoon phase is over. Black women are taught that romantic relationships are equal, but they aren't. In reality, there is no equality in romantic relationships. There's only masculine polarity and feminine polarity when it comes to relationship satisfaction and fulfillment, as men are always at their best when they are needed, when they are useful, and when they are the leaders and the covering for their families, because this is how men shine best. And women are at their best when they are being watered and protected, and when they have the time and the space to rest, to nurture, to rejuvenate, and to restore themselves. But thankfully, with this insider sneak peek, we get to see a couple who was actually going through a power struggle that will ultimately cause over 50% of marriages to end in divorce. But here is a glaring example of a woman who is just tired and who is at her wits' end. But take a listen for yourself, and I will get back to my commentary.
So my focus has not been that of someone who is willing to put my wife, my child, and my other responsibilities second in my priorities to the pursuit of wealth, the pursuit of financial gain. Because for me, my time and the time that I spend with my child and the time that I spend with my wife is more important to me than working 70 hours a week, as you do.
What's happening to you when you're listening to Sean right now?
My temperature is actually going up. Actually, my palms are sweating, to be honest with you.
Because what's happening? Well, there's probably a bunch of stuff going on.
I'm just disconnecting with this conversation, to be honest with you.
Try to locate what's happening to you listening to Sean.
I feel frustrated. I feel like he downplays the true sacrifices that I have been making. Sean, you see how my parents live. Come from shit. For me to have come out of that, I did have to put a lot of energies and efforts towards being successful. So don't sit there and downplay them. Like, it's almost like a pedestal. Like, I hate his pedestal talk. I don't want to put such an
The bullshit talk.
on working or career accomplishments because I see the greater good in having relationships with people. Well, that doesn't pay a motherfucking bill.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to work goddamn hard, Sean. Goddamn hard.
Tell me, girl.
I feel like he doesn't get it. He doesn't get the level of sacrifice.
I don't think he wants to get it.
On the sacrifice, he has sex with other women on me. Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm not.
Now, of course, watching this clip made me feel very sad for this woman, but this is a Captain Obvious, glaring example of a bare minimum, low effort husband who more than likely was poorly vetted. Their value systems are completely disjointed and disconnected. He has clearly weaponized his incompetence. And although I am not a therapist, but this dude does give off some very strong, covert narc vibes, and to boot, he's a cheater who is watching his wife suffer from masculina burnout, and the best that he can do is shrug his shoulders and throw a baby tantrum instead of doing what a husband is supposed to do, which is to come to the masculine rescue. But he can't, because becoming a man with a vision and a plan is not in him. Ladies, a provider man does not have to be a wealthy billionaire. Being a provider is a mindset. Listen, he can be a blue-collar bus driver, but he must be in love with you. He must see you as his queen. He must be willing to give you princess treatment, and he must be willing to give you the shirt off of his back in order for a marriage to have a snowball's chance in hell of surviving. Otherwise, you will end up in a very unsatisfying role reversal marriage dynamic where in many cases you will end up becoming your husband's parent, and your husband will end up feeling like an additional child. And to boot, when spirit of confusion men are not subconsciously getting their worship and ego needs met, they tend to ego repair by cheating. So ladies, please keep in mind that you are not doing a man any favors by not allowing him to court you and impress you and wine and dine you. And in spite of what the pygmies say, it is not a noble cause to not make provision and protection a requirement, because making that mistake will backfire on you and will leave you in a state of misery, torment, and depression. And sidebar, I know a lot of college educated, I got my own career driven Black women are very fearful of being called gold diggers, especially by dusty men who don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. But you cannot care about that if you want to win at hypergamy, because you do not get points in heaven for making it easier for a man to skate on his masculine responsibilities. Not to mention, passive men typically have a very strong chameleon spirit. They cannot be trusted. At first, they come off in the beginning as that safe, happy-go-lucky, nice, supportive guy who isn't threatened by your career and your ambitions, which is often music to a masculine's ears. But then all of a sudden, after the honeymoon period is over, the nice guy mask is normally dropped, and after the honeymoon period is over, your relationship will go through a major identity crisis. Women who pride themselves on their achievements, and I know you're listening, are typically just looking for that nice, so-called humble guy to support them. But no matter how many ways you slice it, ladies, wiring overpowers anything. And a man will need to feel like a man to flourish, even when he himself doesn't know it. And I've said this before on this platform, but your need for a man who gets it will ring especially true when the babies come, and when a woman's energy reserves tend to dive in terms of her ambition and her determination and her endurance and her stamina, which tends to lessen as she gets older. And burnout is real, and eventually she will look to her man to take an extended break, or her career isn't what she thought it would be, which happens often. And then all of a sudden, she's looking at her so-called golden retriever, passive nice guy husband, and starts wanting her man to become an aggressive Doberman pinscher. And the next thing you know, you're in couples therapy trying to figure out how to get your golden retriever husband, and he's just as equally clueless because you're now asking him to do the impossible, which is to switch up his entire blueprint. Ladies, no husband should be peacocking or flexing that his wife is the financial muscle, because in real life, these kinds of feminine leaning men will drain you until you have nothing left. And you won't ever be able to claim your feminine spot because that spot will already have been taken by him. Clearly, this wife is very angry, and justifiably so, very resentful, and she looks like she wants to strangle her man-child husband, who equally looks checked out, numb, and who sounds hella confused. But that is the cost of hypogamy and role reversal. And soon enough, if it hasn't happened already, these two won't even be able to stand the sight of one another. And sadly, there is a child involved. So that is all that I have to say on this single wife syndrome for now. A woman will always desire a man who understands the power of how to step into the covering of his leadership, and we will always desire a man who has a plan and a vision for his family, as opposed to a pipe dream. This man-child husband does not want to provide because, quite frankly, it was probably never required of him in the vetting process, and he probably never even traditionally courted his wife or had to financially impress her, which is very common with a lot of women. But from my observation, he more than likely respects his wife's accomplishments and her leadership, but he does not adore her or cherish her. Big difference. And the signs of him being an outright bum who weaponizes his incompetence were probably already there from day one. So, ladies and lurkers, to get this conversation started, do women expect way too much from men these days, or do they expect too little? And have you ever been a good woman for a lost fool? And again, I thank you for listening, and I thank you for watching, and of course, I thank you for subscribing. And as always, I hope you learned something from this video. And please stay tuned for more case study videos to come, and I will catch up with you ladies and lurkers and ear hustlers in the next one.